All right.
Hello, family.
Hello.
I'm
Welcome
Renee.
back. I'm Kareem.
And thank you once again for hearing us out.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say, welcome to new members. Please subscribe and make sure to comment. And to those who have been with us since day one, thank you
Thank you
for hearing us out.
for hearing us out. And now, in this episode, we want to address the
The divide that we think is there.
yeah, and kind of elaborating on
hmm
a lot of the points that we made the last go round.
hmm
When we were talking about healing, stuff like that, and how it's not, or that forgiveness is not a path.
Right.
Forgiveness, much like peace, is a destination, is a
hmm
thing that you get to, and that a lot of the things that we are using as excuses or justifications, I think is a better word
Word,
for
right.
it, that to justify where we are, and why we aren't,
hmm
you know, the people that we want to be or in the place that we want to be.
hmm
It is because we hold on to this narrative of 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 how this ought to be and how this ought to look, on how or what success is supposed to look like and
hmm
what the revolution, quote unquote, is supposed to look like, and how, all of these things end up entrenching us further into this particular paradigm. And we talked about, how, the fear that at least I have about, committing to something that we think is going to take us away, but actually takes us deeper. And that,
hmm
to do something else requires something else and stuff like that. And I think that lends itself toward, like I said, building on the things that we said in the last time, lends itself toward that idea of the divide, and that
hmm
all the divisions that we see, or that seem so pervasive and
hmm
seem so omnipresent, because we everything feels so immeasurably worse,
Right.
right? Everything feels like it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and that people are further and further away from each other, and everything has become so polarizing. And that this divide has become, insurmountable
Right.
in a sense, and it seems hopeless.
Right. I think in one of the episodes when I think the topic was, what is it that you would want a Joe Biden's presidency or
Yeah.
whatever to look like to start, and I think we talked about this
Yeah.
is that it feels as if things are just coming apart.
Yeah.
You have the Proud Boys and your Trump supporters and the progressives and the different groups desperate, all in pain,
Hmm.
and not understanding that the pain is actually, it's not isolating. Well, it feels as if it is because Trump is the person that you support, and so you're going out of your way. I mean, you have this one guy, I think, like I mentioned, who was in Arizona, or when they're counting the electoral counts,
Hmm.
he presents this form, and it looks, like a
Official.
official, and with credentials and things of this nature, all in an effort to try to take away those
Steal the
11,
vote.
yeah,
Yeah.
to steal these votes. I mean, the things that people are doing, you know is it's wild, and it's frustrating, and it feels as if it's not getting better. It feels as if it's all getting worse. Even right now, we know that the inauguration for the next president is in January,
Hmm.
and it feels as if January can't get here. And you have folk who are like, they're last legging it. They're doing everything that they possibly think that they could do in order to prevent this from happening. I mean, it's wild, and people are angry, people are frustrated, people are hungry. You know, it just seems as if things are not. getting better, and people are afraid. Coronavirus. Now the vaccine is here, and
People are afraid of that.
people are afraid of the vaccine itself. And so it's it's mind blowing, and at the same time, it feels hopeless. And
Hmm.
so, that's the thing that I
Yeah,
wanted to
and a
talk
lot of
about.
I don't that sentiment I think is echoed by a lot of people who are looking at the world and just and it looks like there's just nothing that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that we can do. That it is irreconcilable.
Right.
The world and the people we say we want to be with the people that we are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how all of these things are factoring in to themselves. And for me, like I've never, there's never really been a point where I felt like
This is it.
that. I don't think I've ever really felt hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
I've felt the futility
Mm-hmm.
of it. Things have felt futile,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think they've ever felt hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
Because futility doesn't mean pointless to me.
Right.
Everything, at least how I see it, everything
Right.
is futile
Mm-hmm.
because we're
Right.
all going to die.
Right. Right.
It's all futile.
Mm-hmm.
You
But it's
know,
how
it's
we
how we choose to
to
live.
live. Right.
That really makes things matter. But
Mm-hmm.
in any objective sense,
Mm-hmm.
it's all
Right.
pointless because it doesn't matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
The end result is ironclad,
Right.
right? But when I think about that, but that isn't hopelessness
Mm-hmm.
to me. That's just the way things
All
are,
right. Right. Mm-hmm.
you know. And as long as we're trying to be something, as long as we're trying to, I would say, better ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but not even that.
Right.
Not about bettering.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being. As
Mm-hmm.
long as we've decided to be the people that we say we are, then everything is fine to me. But the problem comes in, from my point of view, in that we as people say that we are, loving and peaceful,
Right.
and that we want peace in our world, and
Mm-hmm.
that we want all these things. We say that,
Right. And yet
but
we act
we act in a completely
different.
contrary
Right.
manner,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that we want to go about solving our issues,
Mm-hmm.
that contradiction in matter seems to reinforce the contradiction instead of actually addressing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the problem comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not hopelessness to me. It's cognitive dissonance. It's it's that there is a dissonance between what we want to be, what we say we are,
Right.
and what we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the problem. That's the problem. Is that we we are failing. You know, we're failing, and that is very hard to admit. People would rather be monsters than failures.
Right.
You know, we would rather be a murderer than a bad parent and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. We would rather do all that type. We would rather be seen as accomplished, like as
Right.
accomplished bad people
Mm-hmm.
than horrible good people.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that in itself shows just how frayed our collective psyche has become.
Mm-hmm.
We've been fighting this battle for so long and just trying to be what we say we are. How many
Mm-hmm.
times have we said it throughout?
Right.
Like, we say that it's that we aren't those type of people
Right.
that don't do those
Type
types
of
of things.
things. Right.
But that is so hard for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we are failing at that, and we are all looking for a reason for the failure. And everybody's looking for something, and even at its most cursory level, you look at it, then you say, it's just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way things are. How many times have we said
Right.
that we're trying to do stand against human
Human
nature?
nature. Hmm.
You know, but I have had to reassess that particular notion, mainly because of one of the conclusions that we came to, like I said in the last episode,
Hmm.
in that, are we stupid? No, we aren't stupid.
Right.
We're lying. That's the problem.
Right.
It's not that we don't know, is that we're failing to act upon what we do.
Do know. Right.
You know, so now I've been, especially like with everything going on,
Hmm.
you have to ask the question: Are people are people just bad? Are people evil? Are we just bad? You know, are we? Is that just who we are?
Hmm.
Because you look at human history and it's replete
Yes.
with the exact same failures again and again. And you look at that and you go like, is that who we are?
Hmm.
Are we bad people?
Hmm.
And the same conclusion that I came to last episode, the same conclusion that I came to here. That
Hmm.
no,
Right.
we're not. And if we take that as axiomatic, these
Hmm.
things are non-negotiable,
Right.
right? People aren't stupid,
Hmm.
and people aren't bad. And if that's non-negotiable, that's self-evident, right? In the very nature of us, then how is it that we're here?
Right.
And how is it that we've been here for so long?
Right. Because we keep lying. In the end, that's what it is. Is that we tend to do. I, I call it the lazy. We don't want to do the kind of work to really become the kind of people who we say we should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's 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 convenient almost to just stay where you are
But why is it convenient? If it's so untenable, so uncomfortable, it lends itself towards that hopelessness.
because it's the thing that you know. The thing or the person who you say that you should be
Mm-hmm.
is the unknown. You haven't done that.
Well, but we haven't done it, but I wouldn't say it's unknown. We know it intuitively. That's
Yes,
why it
yes.
hangs over
Hmm.
us. Like
Yeah,
the
that's why
shadow.
that's why we know we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that.
So it
But the thing is that when you have been doing something a particular way and it has garnered a particular result, and it seems as if, well, if I'm getting something out of this means that, well, I must be doing something right.
and what exactly are you getting out of it?
For some people, uh, we don't have a problem with the current state of affairs. We look at our billionaires in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and we're thinking, oh, if we just would have stuck in that garage, and just would have stuck it out or came up with this plan and just worked out plan, then I too
Mm-hmm.
could be a billionaire. But we don't think about the other costs that's involved in that. We just look at the end result. And so if the end result seems to be positive, right? Because who wants to be poor? Who wants to struggle? Those type of things. So if you're looking at, you know, so many ways to become, a millionaire and a billionaire, and you see that, well, this person did this person, took this other route or whatever the case may be, you're not thinking about the other costs involved. You're just thinking about the end result.
Well, I think a lot of people would say that, well, they don't want to be billionaires. They're not trying to be exorbitantly rich. They just don't want to be poor. They don't want to be struggling
Hmm.
the way that they are. They don't. They don't want to have to be a. They don't want to be a billionaire. They just want to be able to, you know, spend time with their family when they want to, or
Hmm.
go out to eat, travel, do those things, right? They just want to have some freedom, some type of agency in their own lives. And for some people, that looks like being a billionaire that you have to have that amount of exorbitant wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But for majority of people, I don't think that's the case. Well, for some, I won't
Yeah.
say a majority.
Right.
I don't think there's a majority on either side. It's just some and some.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, it's just wanting to have that agency
Mm-hmm.
in their own lives, right? And so a lot of what we're seeing, from people today, and a lot of the unrest that we're seeing is people trying to reclaim or attain that agency, wanting to feel like they have some type of control in their lives. That they can be the type of person that they want to be, that they don't have to conform to some impossible, untenable standard.
Yeah, but I find that that many or some of us, put it
Hmm.
again, that for us to be who we say, we are or who we want to be, that means that needs to involve hurting someone else. Why is it that for you to to grow and for you to change, for you to become, that that means that someone else has to suffer? And that's one
Well,
of the.
I don't think, once again, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they would define it as that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would define it as hurting someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we were to make the bottom not as bottomless as it is, then I think a lot of people would be much more comfortable or be much more hopeful about the world. And what I mean by the bottom not as bottomless, if we were to change the picture of poverty, if poverty didn't mean homelessness and hungriness, and no health care, if at the very bottom everyone still had a house,
Mm-hmm.
everyone still got fed, everyone still,
Had access
had
to
access
the
to
health
health
care.
care
Mm-hmm.
and education and stuff like that. At the very bottom, like at the very worst you can possibly do is be a one home, one car family,
Mm-hmm.
right? If that is what poverty looked like, then a lot of what we're seeing, we wouldn't be seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that it's possible to
It's more
have
than
that
possible, right?
image,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know that that's possible. So that's where a lot of this is coming from, right? Like I'm saying, they don't want to be billionaires in a sense, right? To have that agency. They just don't want to feel like it can all be over at any moment. Like that like not having any stability. Like they can't like living paycheck to paycheck. Like there's nothing. If anything happens, if anything random happens, somebody gets hurt, there's a car accident, something breaks,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Anything outside the norm, and then
Boom, it's all
boom,
gone.
it's all
Mm-hmm.
gone. People don't want to have to live at that they want stability. They want to feel like they have agency,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so that goes back to my original notion of what I don't people aren't defining it as hurting as hurting someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but we know that any type of profit in the way things are
Mm-hmm.
entails someone getting the shorter end
Uh,
of the deal,
right.
shorter end of the stick,
Mm-hmm.
and the image of what that means may change, right? But what the function of it will always stay the same. You can change the image of poverty, right? You can change that image, but that doesn't mean that you're not poor,
Mm-hmm.
that you're getting the shorter end of the stick,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can change that image, right? But that won't change your position, and that won't give you the type of agency, quote unquote, that you're looking for, right? We, I don't want to say that we know that, but we should know that just by the nature of the way things work. Because what you're actually looking for is a way out.
Mm-hmm. You
You're
have
looking for an alternative,
you
but
have
that's not an
lines
alternative.
for miles,
Mm-hmm.
right, of people, trying to get food,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have lines for miles. Like I said, it looks like it's stretching across two states, trying to, apply for unemployment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, benefits. You see what's happening in, our hospitals and even the schools.
All
Well,
over the world.
all over the world.
Yep.
Even in our schools, well, they're not even going to school. It's just this hard,
Mm-hmm.
this makeup of virtual and class. It's just all kind of madness. So I'm like, if we see that,
Mm-hmm.
and no one, well, I don't want to say no one because you know how I feel
Mm-hmm.
about these indefinite pronouns. When you see that, and we're still debating the merits of, you know, a stimulus check to help people,
Mm-hmm.
we're still, you can get, you can actually garner a veto proof bill for the Pentagon and military, that type of stuff, right? But here it is, we're going on 8 months here, and people are literally hanging on by a string, you
Even
know.
less than that.
Yeah, even less than that,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm like, so maybe a lot of you all like what you see. Maybe that's the thing that feeds you to a certain extent to where I don't want to be like that. And
You can't make that extrapolation.
so why is it still happening?
If people are good, right?
Yes. Yes.
If that is self-evident,
Mm-hmm.
that is axiomatic,
Mm-hmm.
then that makes your suggestion impossible.
So why is it that we're still having 800,000 plus people file for unemployment? Why is it that in the span of maybe another week or so, you know, there are going to be mass evictions? You have,
Mm-hmm.
landlords now who are literally like, you know what? I'm just going to take off the front door of the house since you can't pay your rent. I'll take off the front door,
Mm-hmm.
and now the family that's in this home is totally exposed, because there isn't even a front door and it's cold outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why are these things happening? Why is it that
What am I going to say?
no, I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, I thought you were about to say I already know what you're going to say.
I know, no, I want to hear what you have to say.
And what I'm going to say is what
Mm-hmm.
I've already said.
Mm-hmm.
We're failing.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
We are failing to be the people that we say that we are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or we are succeeding at being the people that we say that we are.
That's right.
If because for some people our our inalienable goodness is not inalienable. It's not axiomatic.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, all they see is the cruelty, the savagery of humanity, and that's all we can possibly believe of it. Like I say, you look back at history, look at you had
Yeah,
to
you
look back
look
that
back at it,
far.
right?
But it's easy to think that this what we're in now is an exception, apparition. But no, throughout you know all of the history of society, humanity has been maintaining this untenable situation. It's always come down to the come down. No
Mm-hmm.
society has ever moved just for the betterment of its people. It always has to be some
Something, right?
giant collapse,
Right.
some great
Mm-hmm.
war, some huge divide, some whatever. It
Mm-hmm.
always has to come down to this. It's never just people helping each other because that's
That's
what
what you do,
people
right?
do.
Do right.
It's
Mm-hmm.
never come down to that.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, they look at that and they say, but that's who we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
We're that, you know. And I say that, and you look at who we are now, and it's hard to refute that. right? Look at who it's hard to refute that.
Mm-hmm.
But how exactly then can you explain this compulsion in us to not be that? How can you if we're so bad and if this is our natural state,
Right.
right? Then why is it that we have, like I said, this compulsion, this inner need
Mm-hmm. To fix it.
to fix it, to
Mm-hmm.
be better? We have this knowledge of the good,
Mm-hmm.
of what we actually are,
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Right.
right? We have that
Right.
knowledge, right? And yet, you know, we are like this, right? But how can we explain that knowledge? How can we explain that need
Mm-hmm.
in us? Because this hopelessness comes from, like I said, a failure of us a failure of us living up to our own standards and feeling like it's impossible to do so.
What I think you mentioned it a little earlier here is that the failures, we don't see it as our own, right? We see the failure as something that's being imposed upon us, right?
Mm.
So, take for example the stimulus. Well, why isn't, we're not getting that financial help that we need? It's the politicians. It's Mitch McConnell. It's that,
Mm-hmm.
and if we get rid of him, then we could probably, you know
Mm-hmm.
do something. It's always outside of
Change the
us,
image,
right?
right? And like I said,
Hmm.
politicians don't come from the moon;
Right, they come from us. I
they
get
come from
right.
us.
So, but what I'm saying is
Mm-hmm.
that we don't see. We may see the failures as our own,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't see the salute. But we see the solutions outside.
As their responsibility.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So any failures that we have is of our own making, and
Mm-hmm.
any solutions or whatever is outside of
So
us.
how does that? So once again,
Hmm.
how can we explain this inexorable need to do better, to be better?
How is it that we know something is wrong with that?
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes back to human feelings, human thought.
Mm-hmm.
Just is.
Why is that human thought then? If this is who we are, if we are bad,
Mhm.
right? If we are
How many?
naturally
But how many
cruel,
times
naturally
do?
savage,
But so
if
many
we are
times we
naturally
don't
like that,
work. But so many times we don't work in our knowledge.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes we know
We don't know
it.
how to be bad.
What I'm saying is that you would think that knowledge changes behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times we see that it doesn't. We get stuck in
Mm-hmm.
what it is that we're doing. Like once you learn, you if you
You know
know
better
better,
today,
you
yeah.
do better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we're looking at what's happening, and apparently they don't know. But then again, at the same time, they say, "Well, something is wrong here." But
We know this. We know that.
we know
We
we
know
know
that
that
that's
something
wrong.
is wrong,
We know that you
right?
know. Mm-hmm.
And from that, but we tend not to
But we don't act upon it.
act upon it because,
But we know.
but we know
Why do we know?
it's something that's innate.
Because why is it innate?
What you mean, why? It's a it's a part of us. I mean, it's
Because people are good.
yes, people. Yes, people are good. People are good. They're loving. They're kind.
Mm-hmm.
They're mean. They're they're obnoxious, arrogant,
Well, if
egotistical. They're,
if
they're all of
if
these
we
things.
are good,
Uh-huh.
right, then how is the world the way that it is?
Oh, I know where you're going with this. The world is a reflection of us,
Mm-hmm.
the successes and the failures,
Mm-hmm.
and we may have to change what we think failure is,
Mm-hmm.
uh, change what we think success is. It's a like we say a redefining or recontextualizing because all of the problems that are there, we know that they're problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? and we know that there's something wrong with this or that there's something right with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to find it within ourselves, you know, to change what it is that we deem is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and then even in some cases what we think is right. Because a lot of things that are going on, well, we think that legality means that it makes it right. You
Mm-hmm.
understand me? And so that in itself may have to change as well.
Yeah.
So it's a
And I will say
mm-hmm,
that, like I said earlier, that I have had to recontextualize
mm-hmm,
a lot, a lot of what I felt about us, especially when it becomes that people aren't stupid
mm-hmm,
and people aren't evil.
mm-hmm.
If I am, for me, if I am
Right.
taking that as an absolute fact about our nature, then how can I possibly explain the way things are now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that it perplexed me for a long time because all of this is to the contrary. But it has had to. I had to go back to the old tools,
Right.
you know, to another inexorable
Uh-huh.
thing, in that knowledge changes behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge changes behavior. So if this is what we have made ourselves up to be, then I have to then this, what we are dealing with now,
Mm-hmm.
is the change.
Okay.
Knowledge changes behavior. At
Mm-hmm.
some point, because if we know better, at some point, it is because at some point we did better. At some point we did better.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's not a recorded history. All recorded
Right. Right.
history has
Looks
been,
pretty bad.
it has looked like this.
Right.
But even like, because I'm reading this book called, The Secret Teachings of All
All ages.
Ages,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a book about like ancient hermeticism and symbolism throughout the ancient world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm reading this. Like, I guess there's a part of me that is, that still believes in magic, right? I've
Okay.
always believed in I guess the
What the
intangible,
right.
essence,
Mm-hmm.
the unknowable thing,
Mm-hmm.
unknowable nature of reality, and
Right.
everything that kind of, so I've always kind of believed in that. And I
Yes.
think,
Yes.
what the possibilities of that have changed for me. I don't think I want to be shooting bolts of eldritch energy out my hands
Right.
anytime soon, but hope I could maybe one day. But I've been reading this book, and they talk about all of these things, right? They have, Plato and Aristotle, and a lot of these old Greek philosophers, Pythagoras, and even they lay out the old mystery teachings in
Mm-hmm.
Egypt, and a
Right.
lot of and the Hinduist belief,
Mm-hmm.
Buddhist belief, and a lot of ancient Indian and Aztec beliefs, and how
Mm-hmm.
all these things have uh, a rhythm with each other. They all kind of mirror
Mm-hmm.
each other, and all of it, a lot of it boils down to, at some humans are endowed with this golden light, and all of us have this golden light inside of us,
Mm-hmm.
this innate drive toward peace and good,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be that. But that light, that golden, spiritual, godly part of us,
Mm-hmm.
divine part of
Mm-hmm.
us, has been enmeshed with the profane, vulgar, materialistic, physical world. And that for us to live in that light,
Right. Right.
we have to be guided by reason and logic and
Right.
intelligence and wisdom and all these things. These things which take on physical, actual ramifications for these people. These are actual, tangible things.
Right.
Like the God came down and spoke His word, and His word was reason.
Right.
These things,
Right.
you know. and you have to live in that.
Mm-hmm.
So to allow your light to pierce through the darkness of this, material world,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it always comes back to that. So I would say that even even during those times, even during ancient Greece and ancient Rome and ancient Egypt
Mm-hmm.
and the times before then, we knew that there was something wrong. That we as humans have this drive to be good, yet for some reason
Mm-hmm.
our world is so bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even then we had that knowledge, and I'm thinking because the only way that we can have this knowledge that something is wrong with who we are. I just think about like Adam and Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were good
Mm-hmm.
until they got knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Then they became bad. So knowledge does change behavior. We learned something about ourselves that took us away from what we say we are and enmeshed us in this state of madness.
Madness, right? So how? I mean, so getting back to something we had talked about before is that what we see now is the results of the change, the result of
Mhm.
the not acting in our knowledge.
Our knowledge, something about our knowledge has taken us away from ourselves
Right.
and enmeshed us, like I said, in this
Mm-hmm.
madness.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge did change behavior, and there was something about what we learned about self or about nature or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that took us away from that peace that we know we're supposed to be living
Yes. So now we have 70 plus million people who are still driven and still with the idea of a, a Trump presidency, that he even should be president, that this is something that was stolen,
in.
whatever the case may be. Right?
70 million people voted for him.
Yes.
I don't think 70 million people,
Think the election was stolen.
yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So you have, over 70 million people. How is it that now with what's happening that they can be moved to their light?
Well, how can you? Are they the only ones in denial?
No is the short answer.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that you move to your light? First of all, you have to acknowledge that you even have to be moved.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
And
come
I
to that.
think that all boils down to I've been using the wrong word to describe our condition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's
I've been using the word compulsion. We have an inner compulsion toward the negative, the bad vice,
mm-hmm.
the vices of ourselves. We have a
Mm-hmm.
compulsion towards that. I don't think compulsion is the right word. I think a better word is addiction. And as we all know, addiction is a sickness. We are sick and we are
Mm-hmm.
addicted to this madness. Why? Because, and I don't want to get too
Right.
heady here. I
uh-huh.
don't want to get too ahead of people,
Uh-huh.
but knowledge of self took us away from who we are instinctually. If at our very basis there is that light, there is that good, then instinctually we are good,
Mm-hmm.
right? But knowledge of self, sentience, consciousness takes us away from that one instinctual truth about us. It takes us away from that to where now we have to justify to the light in us
Mm-hmm.
why there is this darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And it became to such an extent that we would deny that light and just say that we've always been dark, right? That's when we have this innate knowledge of the fall. And what is that? It's knowledge itself, it's consciousness itself. You know? We look at who we are and we need to justify it to who we say we're supposed to be. And it takes us away from that. And now we're in this entrapped in this madness, in this denial, this fruitless argument, trying to justify to that part of us that we know we should be,
Mm-hmm.
trying to justify who we are. We have this point to prove, and we've said that so many. I've asked
Right.
that so many
Two
times.
times, right?
We have this. Why? Who are we trying to prove? What are we trying to prove to? Who are we trying to prove
Mm-hmm.
to?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to prove it to God? Who are you trying to prove to?
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to prove it to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. We're trying to prove it to that part of us that dwelled in Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Why we had to fall. And we are, all of us, spiraling out of control because we can't we can't win that argument.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in denial about our nature. We're all in denial about who we are. If we are good, if we are good, if we have an inner compulsion towards that, then something had to change. Something had to change. And something did change. We
Mm-hmm.
changed. We gained consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that took us away from that instinctual nature toward cooperation.
Mm-hmm. So now in our consciousness, in
Mm-hmm.
our awareness, are we aware that, well, I already know. Are we aware that what has been happening is madness?
We are aware that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We are aware of that. I don't think we are aware of. I mean, as a people, I don't
Right.
think that we're aware of the failure. We're not aware of the madness because this isn't madness to us. There's a lot of people who just make the jump and say that we are evil, that we are bad.
Mm-hmm.
You can justify that. You can rationalize it because you look at the world,
World, right.
look at how it's been.
Mm-hmm. Look
You
at what
know,
we're continuing to do
look at what we're
to
continuing to do
ourselves.
to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and the things around us.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't self-contained anymore. The world is dying, right? And we're looking, and it's because we are bad. We are driven by selfishness and opportunism and this egocentric
Individualism. Mm-hmm.
individualism. That it's coming at the cost of everything around us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're trying to prove to the good that we are bad. We have taken, and like I said before, this has the weight of time. We've been doing this for
So
so
long,
long
right?
that we have mistaken this for natural. But what did I say before then? And I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Never accept this as normal. Never accept this as normal. And I've looked throughout history and it's always been, and if I can't accept it now, then I can't accept it then either.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been normal.
Right.
We've had this sickness, this war between self-actualization and self-destruction going on the inside. Because to to, to, to justify what we have become,
Mm-hmm.
to feel so alienated from everything around us, so alienated from ourselves, we there needs to be some truth in it. There needs to be some meaning towards it. You know, there has to be. There has to be some reason behind it.
So does it require some catastrophic event to reignite this fire of good?
Does it take?
I, I mean, if it took, this consciousness, all right, to move us away from us and who
Knowledge
we right,
changes behavior, and
right.
hopefully, well, no, it doesn't. You know, it doesn't. It doesn't take some grand cataclysm. It takes knowledge because knowledge changes behavior.
Hmm. So we are not. So we are acting in our knowledge.
No, we are not.
We're just acting. We're acting
In a
another
denial
in a denial of it.
of what we know
Right. And so,
in this
but
addiction.
but we do know hurt. We do know pain.
Hmm.
We do know these
We
things.
do know these things, but we are mistaking them for the natural state of society, of
Right.
human society.
So like I said, it's not that we aren't acting in our knowledge. It's just that we're
We
not
are
we aren't acting in. I'm going to say in all of it.
we are acting in madness.
Fair enough. Yeah.
We are acting in that denial.
Hmm.
You know, and this seems very hard to justify because there's a lot. I mean, I could just simply point at anything
Hmm.
to justify, this badness. At what point was there this Edenic society that we say we had,
Hmm.
right? That we feel this compulsion towards this peace. At what point have we ever had that?
Hmm.
And so this argument that I'm making, about the nature of humanity seems so romanticized and idealized,
Hmm.
but I don't know any other way to say it, but that it's the truth.
Hmm.
You know, it's the truth. How else can you explain in us this need?
To do right.
Yeah, to do right, to,
Hmm.
to act in rightness, to
Hmm.
be right. Our knowledge took us away from that. Why is that? You can't. Why is it that knowledge took us away from those things that we say are good?
Hmm.
Right. Well, how can I explain? It's like
So
say that. What
no,
you
no.
got?
I was going to say. I remember mentioning one time in with one of the books that I read, right? And I said, if things are this way now, then there had to be a point when it wasn't like this. And I remember you were like,
I never been like
"But
not
not
necessarily.
not necessarily." And so
I've come to
there
that. No, that has to have been.
has to have been a point
And
when
I'm
it wasn't
thinking,
like this.
I'm thinking, I'm trying to. How do I explain this? I'm
Uh,
trying because I usually have some analogy, some
mhm.
antidote,
Yes, you do,
something
right?
that I could point to.
And so what I was
But
going to say is that how is it that we we know that something is wrong? We have been knowing that something is wrong. Even those who are, you know, perpetuating this. You can think of practically all of the crimes against humanity. Even they knew, that something was wrong, but yet they kept doing it.
it's an addiction
It's an addiction.
because we're trying to justify it.
Hmm.
We're trying to say that this is who we are.
But it's not
It's not.
because so how is it that we could get to to where we were at one time, I guess, and where we should.
Well, I would say where we were at one time lies. I don't think it was ever a society.
I agree with that. Yes, it wasn't right. That's fair.
I think it's on a very small scale. When you just think about the idea of like of a baby and a parent,
Hmm.
right? And of their parents who seemingly selflessly gives so much towards this child,
Hmm.
right? They, give them a home, they give them food, they
Hmm.
give them warmth and shelter and kindness
Right.
and all these
Hmm.
things. You know, I think that leaves a mark on us. That leaves a mark on us, right? And that exists there. We know that we are capable of it. We know that we can live in it and we know what it gives us. But then Everything else takes us away from that. Takes us away from that axiomatic truth, that we are born into.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for a place for it exists right there. You know, it exists right there, and it's still existing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's still existing, but now we are in such self denial that we will deny all of that, all of that, and but you're thinking that it's going to make you feel better. Like you said, you can change the image, you can change you can change how it looks, you can change how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
You're wanting that to desperately change what it means, but you know that it won't. Like I say, you can change what poverty looks like, but it won't change the fact that you're poor.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not feel like it may be more stable, right? And more, at least more stable than what you were living in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not yours. And
Is
you
there
know
is
that
there
that the
any way
same
is there any way to even get rid of the concept of poor?
not as long as there's the concept of profit.
Okay.
You know, that's always going to be there as long as someone is looking to get more out of the deal than someone else,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way to, I would say, get rid of that. I'm sounding like a complete romantic. I'm just thinking to myself, but it is through selflessness.
Mm-hmm.
It is through the giving
Mm-hmm.
without wanting anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the parent and child
Mm-hmm.
who's doing what they do out of love,
Right.
not looking for anything in return,
Right. Do the
just
right thing
because they
because it's
feel like it's the right thing.
yeah. Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
In a way,
In a way. Yes.
do the right thing because it's the human thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
You
That's fair.
know,
That's fair.
it's 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 the only way to do it
Mm-hmm.
if you are operating from a sense of humanity.
And I remember a conversation that we had because I remember asking, I'm like, well, why is it so difficult for us just to because it's the right,
Mm-hmm.
why does it take so much out of us to do that? And what I'm finding is that, well, apparently some of us think that there isn't anything, I'm not getting anything out of it doing it, quote
It's
unquote,
because it's an addiction.
right, the right way.
It's because our world was built upon this denial. Our societies were built upon this denial. And we've been existing in it for such a long time that we think that there's something wrong with us. Like I can say things like selflessness and love and being seen as too idyllic, and
Right.
that's not who we are.
Yeah.
Like you have like you just I was going to say instinctual. I was going to
Right.
say I can't say that no more. I know that's not the case.
uh
Your
hmm
this addiction, to this like I was it Vince Lombardi who said that winning is a tradition and so is losing.
Yeah, something. I think it was
Yeah,
Vince Lombardi who
yeah,
said that,
that
right?
coach.
Right.
We have entered into a losing tradition.
hmm
We have been losing and failing for so long that we are now trying to look for a way to justify that, to say that there's no such
I
thing
think
as
it's
succeeding.
right.
This is the
Right.
only way you can
Right.
possibly be. Coming at the costs and in spite of and working against everything and only being able to get so far by the people that you're willing to step over,
And step on,
by the
right.
inhumanity that
hmm
you're willing to show. How many lives you're willing to destroy to get to the place that you're trying to get to.
hmm
That's we because we're trying to justify ourselves to ourselves. You like how many times have we said we have this hole and we're trying to fill it with all these things.
hmm
Now we know where that hole comes from. That comes from this denial of self. You know, this denial of self, but in a way that we have never been able to recognize it as ourself.
hmm
Not until we've not like being enmeshed in this darkness has been able to do. Because no matter how far we have fallen into it, we've always known that we have fallen, that
Yes.
we are falling, and
Right.
that we are failing.
Mm-hmm.
Our denial of that comes from a knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we are failing. We know that this isn't the way things are supposed to be.
So why is it, if we know that, all right, if we know that this is not the way it should be,
Why is it this way?
why is it this way? And why do we, why aren't we turning the table? Why aren't we moving the way that we're supposed to be moving in? If if we know that,
Because it's an addiction.
yes, it's an addiction,
It's a sickness.
it's a sickness. We're sick, and so I keep saying I just don't think it should be this difficult. It should not be this hard. But it seems as if it takes so much out of us to just be decent, to just do the things that we say that we should be doing. You know how there is no there is no way that there should be, you know long lines for miles stretching onto highways for food. We should not have to, I mean, go through all of the rigmaroles that we have to go through in order to, we talking basic living here, that's being cut at the ankles. And you're wondering why people are hobbling. Because we don't even want, it takes so much out of us to move, because we feel like, if I do this, that means that I'm lacking in something. Like if I do something right, that means that
Because
I'm a
we're in
softie.
denial.
That too.
We're not that too. That's what it is.
It's a denial.
It's a denial. We are losing we are losing the internal battle to self-destructiveness because we cannot justify our consciousness to ourselves. We can't justify it. We can't explain it. And it has taken us away from what we know because we're trying to justify it. We're trying to show ourselves the things that we get because of it. And it's never been enough. And it never will be enough. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter how much the image changes. Doesn't matter, how what you're able to get out of it. Right? Like you said before, you started off wrong.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter where you go from here.
Right.
You can't correct it in
In
the
the
middle
middle.
if the very root of it is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we started off wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We started off, I don't want to say wrong. We started off dedicating ourselves toward the futility of winning a war, trying to win this internal battle that we've all been fighting, denying, you know, what we say we ought to be. We've all been trying to win that war. Like I said, this world was built by killers and maintained by liars.
Mm-hmm.
And to live in this world, you have to kill and lie. And so you have to lie that it's normal. You have to kill to profit. Every single time you're destroying and lying and killing at every instance, you know? And that's all. And no matter where you go, no matter how much the image changes, that's all it has ever been.
Right. People are addicted to lying, and people are addicted to killing.
Because you're trying to win. You're trying to win. You're trying to justify. You're trying to rationalize. You are addicted. You are dependent upon this madness to justify itself. You've been doing it for so long that you think there has to be a meaning. But there is one. And it's that you've been lying. But you don't want to accept that. You can't accept it. You've been lost in this darkness for so long that you're feeling around and it's void, wanting for there to be something, and there isn't, and you know there isn't. You know there isn't. You know it. And you know that this is taking you away from what you say that you are. You know it. But you can't allow yourself to believe it. You can't allow that to change you. Because if that does, then that means you were failing.
Mm-hmm.
You were failing. And you don't want to say you'd rather be a monster
Mm-hmm.
than a failure. You'd rather be an accomplished bad person than a terrible good person. We've all we've all been lying, denying in denial. Like it's like the thing I said about sleep paralysis,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that you're there and you feel like you have what they call the devil sitting on your chest. So the devil's trying to pull your soul down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's pulling on you, and you're fighting it and fighting it and fighting it
Mm-hmm.
because you know for a fact that if you let go, if you lose this battle, you are going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So you fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it until finally you wake up. You're no longer in sleep paralysis,
Mm-hmm.
right? And say, I get sleep paralysis. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that.
Right.
And say, but like I said before, do you know what happens when you let go? The same thing that happens when you fight it constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up. You wake up. But like I said, there's a difference between waking up startled and afraid
Mm-hmm.
and waking up after a refreshing night of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose what you want. You're holding on to this denial.
We're
You're
addicted,
you're
and we're choosing this.
you're addicted.
Mm-hmm.
You're addicted. There's no choice at that point. You're sick. How can you choose? You're addicted. You're addicted to this madness because you know for a fact that if you let it go, then you are a failure.
And the first step is to admit that you even have the problem.
The first step is to admit it.
Mm-hmm. And so, if you're not admitting it to yourself, then there's no way that
Mm-hmm.
you can do anything really outside of that.
Yeah, and as I told you, I've been reading this book, and even then, they've fallen short of the measure.
Yeah.
They always, Plato and Aristotle, all of them were very misogynist. Even then you drawing lines in the sand and trying to find the light. You knew there was something wrong.
Right.
You knew there was something wrong, but you didn't know how to be right. Because even then you still draw lines. Like say you draw lines in the sand, saying who is and who isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to place blame, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's been
again and again and again.
That's what we've
Denial.
been doing.
You're in denial.
Mm-hmm.
You're lying. You're
So
lying.
the first step,
but you don't know any other way to be. But say that you're a failure. Allow yourself to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Let go and die and get to the light already.
Right.
How many times have we say, go to the light, go to the light, go to the light. Come to find out that was the way to go.
Right.
Just stop lying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this is rehab.
Mm-hmm.
This is rehab. When you stop lying and you surround yourself with things that challenge your notions.
Mm-hmm.
With books and people that challenge you.
Mm-hmm.
That's rehab. That is intellectual rehab.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowing yourself to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
To break the addiction.
Right. And connect with others who are moving in the same sort of direction that you're moving in.
But you
understanding that everyone moves at a different pace, but you're still moving nonetheless.
And
so
you have to be able to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to admit that you were failing.
Mm-hmm.
That we're all failing.
Mm-hmm.
That no, this isn't the way things are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And no is socialism isn't the answer.
Right.
Political correctness isn't the answer.
Right.
Neither is fascism and
right.
I don't know,
and rudeness and whatever.
All that other stuff.
Right.
Neither is that.
Mm-hmm.
The solution here is honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge of self took you away from what you knew you were, and knowledge of self is going to take you back towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Be
I
honest,
said,
right?
Yeah, like I said many a times that it's not a building.
Right.
It's not an infrastructure. All of you, you're putting the image in front of the
Before,
people
right.
who are supposed to create it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have the thing, but you don't want to be the people who would build that.
Mm-hmm.
So you just want to have it and say that you have it and think that means something. It doesn't.
Right.
Like I said, it's a prop.
Right.
It stays there and it's not really, and it's not causing any type of change.
Mm-hmm.
It's not taking you toward that place you want to go. If you want to get there, then there's no bootstraps here.
Right. Right.
You know, you have you have to change your mind,
Yep.
period. And it's not about defeating the material,
Mm-hmm.
because this is who we are.
Right. Sober up.
Mm-hmm.
Just recognize and acknowledge what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you to try not to blame.
Mm-hmm.
Just move in that knowledge of what has occurred and move towards something else. We're so busy trying to correct what has happened. Like we
Mm-hmm.
keep going in the past, trying to correct this, trying to correct, or whatever. And I'm like, if that's how you want to spend your days,
Mm-hmm.
I I can only tell you that when you acknowledge something, you are responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And in this acknowledgement of what has transpired, the blaming, that's only going to get you so far anyway. Because what you're going because in your blaming you want to try to keep that narrow. Because it was just this, it was just
Mm-hmm.
that. And they come to find out with people is that it was a myriad of things.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find out easily that no one was innocent in this. And so in your moving and in your knowledge gathering, you know, you're taking the time to do that. Work on the self.
Mm-hmm.
If if what we have now is the work that we have done, right?
It's
Not
denial,
the
not doing
denial, right?
the madness,
The madness,
trying to
right?
justify,
Right.
trying to rationalize.
Right. We then it just
Mm-hmm.
would make, I guess, sense. I guess to try to move in a different direction, but you can only move in that direction with how you think.
Yeah, and I'm not a biologist. I'm not a
No,
psychologist.
no.
I don't really have a way of scientifically, for a fact,
Hmm.
being able to tell you that what I'm saying is right.
Well,
That it's the truth.
when you're
There's no
dealing with
way.
people, well, see, that's the thing. Even in the scientific, even in the psychology,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going because you're dealing with people. It's never going to
Yeah.
be
All I can
for a
say is
fact
that all
or
I
be
can say
exact.
is, like I said, I'm not. I don't have. I can't point to the jellyfish and say, this right here,
Right.
figures everything out. I'm not a scientist.
Hmm.
Well, not a practicing scientist. All they say is that to be a scientist is to create. You don't
Right.
need a degree to be that. But I'm not. I don't have a degree. But I'm
Right.
not a doctor or anything.
Right.
All I can tell you, like I said before, is that if you can understand yourself,
That's right.
then
Then
you
you
can
can understand
understand everything
everything
else.
else. Right.
You know, and I can't tell you, from any objective measure that what I've said is the truth. That you know we are good,
Hmm.
and that everything that we've been dealing with has been a denial and a madness. I can't say that that's for definite.
Hmm.
All I can say is that we know that something is wrong.
Right.
We know that there's something is wrong. And if you want to look for where that comes from knowledge of self.
Hmm. Yeah, because you know that
And
something is wrong.
not,
Right.
and I
Right.
can't. There's no. That's just.
That's just what it
I
is.
don't know how to.
I don't know what to put in.
That's that's just how I feel about
Right.
it, man. That's just how I feel about
Right. And look,
it. And,
we have, you know, that mantra of knowledge of self. Y'all know where that comes from. I think one of the first books that we read, well, one of the first books that we were dealing with in homeschooling,
mhm,
and they had it's not a poem, but it was by the ancient Egyptians,
mhm,
and it, it, literally says one of the first when you talk knowledge of self, Learn
Like
that.
I'm
Learn
not
that.
a
Learn that.
scientist,
Right.
but I am a practicing, thinking human
Human
being.
being. Right.
You know, I am a practicing, thinking human being, and I've
Mhm.
looked at this and thought about this for a long time. And all I can say is that, bro, we ain't stupid,
Right. So let's
and
start
we are
acting
not.
like it. Right. Right.
I don't believe it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't stupid, and we ain't evil.
Right.
We are smart, and we are good.
Right.
And if I'm going to take that as a fact of nature, then the reason why is because we are lying and that we are in denial.
Right. And that we know is true. We know that we've been lying.
We know that.
We know that.
We know lies are out there.
Right.
But, for us to say that we've been lying,
Right.
I think it's easier to say that they've been
Been
lying.
lying. Right.
But if
But
for us
when
to
I say
say,
we, I'm just talking. I'm
no, I
talking.
know I'm just saying,
Right.
but for people, you always try to that group,
Right. Right. They're the ones
scapegoating
that been
thing. They're
lying.
the
Right.
ones
Right.
and all that stuff.
Right.
It's easier to make those types of
Right.
leaps, those types of justifications.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, you know, all of this, all of this. In conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
the divisions out there are only divisions on a superficial level.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what we know for a fact is that we're all in pain. And that pain is not something that isolates you. You think it does because you're the one feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's your pain, and you think that since it's yours, you get so caught up in it, you forget that everyone else is in pain too.
Mm-hmm.
We're all hurting. And that pain doesn't isolate you. It puts you a part of this grander community of hurt, this grander community of madness and denial that we're all dealing with. And it all comes from a knowledge of self, a knowledge that changed us into this, and a knowledge that hopefully will be able to change us into what we say we are.
Mm-hmm.
Not a denial of the darkness,
Right.
not a denial of the light, but an understanding of both and a marrying of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've said many, many times, that there are things about this world that are provable but aren't necessarily true.
Right.
And there are things that are true but aren't
Provable.
provable
Right.
in any standard metric.
Mm-hmm.
And right in the middle of that, of all those things that can be proven but aren't true, and all those things that are true but can't be proven,
Mm-hmm.
lies us. And we get to make that measure.
That's right. We get to make the
We
decision.
have
That's
we
right.
have no other choice but to exist in that.
Mm-hmm.
We have no other choice. That's where humanity was born or created to be, however you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all of this is going to have to take place. Where all of this is going to have to exist in. We ain't going nowhere. It ain't going nowhere.
Right.
So just face it. Deal with it head on. And like I've said before, the double, the truck coming straight down the line, and you want to meet that power and be able to live through it, get out the way.
Yeah, please. Right.
But don't get out the way of the foolishness of this.
Right.
But don't try to swerve knowledge of self.
Yeah.
Because
don't
no matter where you
right.
go.
Yeah, you take you wherever you go.
Because no matter where you go, that is going to hang over you.
Right.
You can't escape it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at history. Look at all of our philosophers. We've never been able to escape.
Mm-hmm.
Never. For thousands of years, we've been trying. 10,000 years, I think, is all of recorded history.
Neat.
So for 10,000 years,
Right.
we've been trying desperately with everything
Right.
that we have been doing and we have done, and most likely everything that we will do.
Whatever the recorded history is, that's what it's
We
been.
have been
Right?
trying to justify this madness to ourselves. But we never can.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that it's madness.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we're sick. This is an addiction. And to break the cycle, break the addiction, it's not going, like I said, it's not going to require a building.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to require a giant revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be the mothership coming back, or the light of God touching us all.
It won't be the horn of Jericho?
No.
The Jericho? No.
No. It's going to be this right here. It's going to be a simple conversation
Uh,
between those who know and those who are attempting to know.
right.
And once we all can admit, once we all admit
Mm-hmm.
that we've been lying, that we have been in denial, once
Mm-hmm.
we at least as humans can admit that,
Right. If that's what you start. If you
at
can
the very
start that,
least,
you'll
right
be
there,
okay.
if
Right.
we can do that,
Right. Stop lying.
then everything else is going to fall
Fall
into
into
place.
place. Mm-hmm.
So, if you have any comments,
Comments.
questions, concerns,
Mm-hmm.
leave them in the comments. And thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.